Ana Karina Blanco was walking her usual path to school through her quiet village in Colombia when she felt that something was off. She noticed that a man had been following her, so to be safe, she secretly took a photo of him and sent it to her family to warn them that she was being followed. But shortly after, Ana Karina disappeared. What happened when the community identified the man in the photo was both controversial and unexpected. Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. I hope you're all doing super well. Thank you all so much for being here for today's video. Today, we're going to be diving into the case of Ana Karina Blanco, a girl from Colombia whose ordinary walk to school turned into something unimaginable. For the community, justice was made and they were confident that what they did was the right form of retribution. But for others, this choice was a violation of human rights and it undermined the justice system. This one just honestly scared me, you guys. Like, it was really hard watching the news clips and watching what they did to, the guy that did this to Ana Karina, and just watching interviews with her family and just with the community. It was really hard to hear the details, and I just hate how this keeps happening. Like, it's absolutely exhausting to hear how this happens over and over again. Now, while the details of what happened to Ana Karina are difficult to listen to, again, it's just so important that we continue sharing these stories and just spreading awareness on safety and about what actually is going on around the world. So yeah, thank you guys so much for being here to keep Ana Karina's story alive and for helping us spread awareness together. If you guys would like to keep up with me on my other socials, all of those will be linked down below. I know so many of you guys have been asking for makeup tutorials and like beauty videos, so I have plenty of those on my Instagram and on my beauty TikTok, which will be linked down below. Thank you to everyone who is a familia member. I appreciate you guys so much. And yeah, that's pretty much all I have to say. This one is going to be a difficult video to listen to, so with that, let's jump right in and let's talk about what happened to Ana Karina. Ana Karina Blanco Duran grew up in the municipality of Cáceres in the department of Norte de Santander, Colombia. She was the eldest of 3 children and was so loved by her parents. She lived in the rural village of La Sardina, which is quiet and surrounded by really beautiful greenery. It's relatively isolated from like major nearby cities, but the people who live there make it work by either working in nearby livestock farms and cultivation fields, or by traveling to the nearest city every single day. That said, there is a lack of police presence, but overall it is still considered like a safe and just close-knit village. Ana Karina grew up here and she had a pretty good childhood. One thing about her is that she just absolutely loved reading from a very young age, specifically romantic comedies. She also really loved school and was incredibly committed to her education. Those who knew her said that she stood out not only for how smart she was, but for also just how like warm and uplifting she was to every single person that she met. She was very extroverted, she could talk with anyone. Even if you just met her, you could start up a conversation with her. And everyone says that she just lifted others up with her presence and just always cheered on her classmates, constantly offering encouragement and positivity. For example, she would walk into her classroom and with a lot of enthusiasm, she would greet her classmates and ask them how they were all doing. On International Women's Day, she arrived at school with her arms open, shouting that women were the most beautiful thing on earth. School just meant a lot to Ana Karina, so I think that helped her to be a source of positivity for those around her. Her classmates have said just like absolutely beautiful and wonderful things about her, and just from what we've said so far, it's not shocking to believe that she was a good person and that she wanted to do great things in her life. She was willing to go to great lengths to secure a better future for herself and for her family through her studies. She was so disciplined, you guys, and she had a super big passion for living life to the fullest, just doing her best in everything that she did. Every single day, she would wake up before sunrise, put on her school uniform, gather her school supplies, and head out the door. Now, the journey to get to school was not easy. It began with a 45-ish minute walk through the village's, very grassy terrain, and whatever the condition, whether it was raining or freezing cold outside, Ana Karina walked. This path eventually took her to a main road where then she would wait for a public bus that would take her to the rest of the way to her school. Once on the bus, she would reach into her bag, she would pull out her clean school loafers and swap them out for the boots that she wore during the long walk, which were often left, caked with like mud and just like other debris from the trails. Now, this journey was long, it's not an easy thing to do, but it's something that many students who lived in the rural villages did. So she grew up, used to doing this, and she knew that she had to make this journey every single day to to go to school so that her dreams could come true. She dreamt of finishing school and becoming a psychologist, a career where she hoped to make a meaningful impact, not only for, other people, like I said, but for her family as well. One of her big dreams, and honestly, like her biggest motivation to succeed in life and just do well, was to buy her mother a small house one day. In a school project dated April 21st, 2022, students had to write about their life dreams and, about what they wanted to achieve. And in this entry, Ana Karina wrote about how her mom is her biggest inspiration. She said, quote, "Like everyone else, I have goals I want to achieve, but for now, I'm focused on being happy, studying, and helping my mom. As a matter of fact, she is the reason behind my dreams. She is a fighter and is the most wonderful woman that could ever exist." I think that's just such a beautiful thing to say about your mom, and, just through that, you can tell how much she loved her. She then went on to say that she was excited for the future, to attend university one day, but, alongside all of that hope and all of that excitement was also fear. Fear of growing older and of the unknown. In her own words, Ana Karina wrote, quote, "I feel like I am not ready to face this world on my own. I wish I could turn back time and enjoy the world alone. I wish I could go back in time and enjoy more. Play with a doll. Even though every girl did it, I never did. I think the world taught me to be mature from a very young age. I don't feel capable of facing this world, or maybe I am ready. We'll leave that for destiny to decide." So it seemed like she was, quite excited for what was to come in her future, but at the same time, like also worried and a little bit scared, kind of sad about the childhood innocence that she never fully got to experience like other children. Now, in rural communities, it's not uncommon for young girls to kind of take on those like adult, more mature roles early on, like caring for their younger siblings or doing the household duties and walking long, difficult paths just to get to school or even to work. Sadly, for Ana Karina, it seems like the simple joy of playing with dolls or just living the carefree innocence of girlhood wasn't a part of her story. But, she kept her head up and was going to keep pushing forward for herself and for the sake of her family. Unfortunately, Ana Karina's hopes and dreams were tragically taken from her not long after she wrote them down in that school assignment. On May 3rd, 2022, Ana Karina walked her usual path to school, a path that she had walked, way too often, and one that symbolized the journey towards her dreams for the very last time. That morning, as she was walking through the grassy route, she just couldn't shake the feeling that someone was watching her. Something just felt off, she had that gut feeling, and I think a lot of us know that feeling. When she looked behind her, she saw a man closely following her. She tried walking faster, but as soon as she did, the man would also match her pace. He would walk fast behind her. Now, the walk to the bus stop was about 45 minutes, and it seemed like this man wasn't really heading in any other direction, so, Ana Karina was feeling paranoid. It was 5:30 in the morning, and she was completely alone. No one else was on the trail besides the two of them. She began feeling extremely uneasy at this point. Was this man following her, or was she overthinking it? What if he's also on his way to the bus? Either way, Ana Karina just kept her distance from this man just to be safe. When she was around 10 minutes away from reaching the main road to get on the bus, the man was still there following her. So now, her senses were starting to kick in and she took action. She took out her phone and she snapped a photo of this man. This is the photo that she took and she sent to someone with a message along the lines of, "This man is following me and I feel followed." Now, there are a lot of varying reports as to who exactly she sent this picture to. Some reports state that she sent it to her father, some say that it was to a classmate or to a boyfriend or to another family member, but what authorities have publicly said is that she sent this photo to someone she was close with, and this person then informed her family. Regardless, Ana Karina sent this picture so that someone could know what was going on, so that there could be a record of this man that was following her, because she was scared and, she wanted to get this image out there just in case. Unfortunately, after she sent that message, she went silent. She no longer replied to any messages or answered any calls, and she never made it to school. This was unusual in itself, but now with the photo and the text that she sent, this immediately worried her family. They began searching for her right away, using the last photo she sent to begin their search. Now, in a town as close-knit as hers, word of Ana Karina's disappearance spread quickly, and so did the urgency to find her. Neighbors, friends, and even strangers dropped everything to help her family. While some searched the hills and the paths that she might have taken, others were focused on identifying the man that was in this picture, the man that was following her. A local worker remembered seeing a man who kind of resembled him arriving at the fields that morning with like blood on his clothes. Now, what struck him as odd was the man's behavior. He immediately went to wash his clothes and kind of clean himself up before starting his shift in the field, so this really stood out to this worker. With that information, a group of people made their way to that man's place of work to look for him. They actually did find him there, and they surrounded this man and demanded answers, asking where Ana Karina was and what he knew. Now, their fear and worry had turned into a rage when the man wasn't telling them anything and was just denying it all. But they persisted, and as the crowd around him grew and as this man began to feel more cornered, he confessed. This man was identified as 55-year-old Alexander Carrillo, who had arrived in Colombia from Venezuela a few months ago. Alexander confessed to seeing Ana Karina that morning and admitted that yes, he followed her and basically abducted her on her way to school. He said he grabbed her, essayed her, stabbed her, and then threw her body in the Cachera River. The community was furious when they heard this. How could he commit such a horrific crime? Like, how could he do something so evil and then just calmly show up to work as if nothing had happened? Several people rushed straight to the river, fearing that the current might carry Ana Karina's body away. They did find her bag, but the search for her body took a little bit longer. Each minute that they searched was just agonizing, but they knew that they were not going to leave until they found her. As the search continued by the river, those who stayed behind with Alexander were just beyond furious. He took the life of an innocent girl from their community. He robbed her from her family and then threw her body away like she meant nothing. The community was thinking, like, what if he does this again? What if he hurts my own daughter or my loved one? Everyone was just so scared and angry at him. Surrounded and just absolutely defenseless, Alexander began getting beaten by the crowd. It was absolute chaos. If you watch some of the clips from this, interaction, I mean, they all completely surrounded Alexander. They were kicking him, they were punching him. It was a lot. However, local police soon arrived and they managed to pull him out, taking him into custody at a small local police station. But even though he was in police custody, the crowd wasn't backing down. Officers decided to transport Alexander to another station for his protection, and around 2 miles into their drive to this new police station, the crowd caught up to them. They just weren't going to let him leave. They maneuvered a truck directly into the police's path, completely blocking them. They then threatened the 3 police officers who were transporting Alexander that if they didn't basically let him go or let them handle it, they were going to set their cars on fire. The authorities, were surrounded by this huge crowd, so they began to argue back with them and things escalated. Through the chaos, people were able to pull Alexander out of the vehicle, and then they began to hit him with their fists, with their legs, with rocks, with sticks, with machetes, with anything that they could find. According to Colonel Carlos Martinez, he said, quote, "The community attacked both the police officers and the suspect, inflicting multiple injuries. Ultimately, a relative of the young girl delivered the fatal wound, and the suspect later died."
La Policía Nacional, en enterarse, se traslada al sitio, les quita a esa persona extranjera de 55 años. Estando en ese procedimiento, los policiales es atravesado un camión que evita que los policías salgan del sitio. Un familiar, al parecer, de la joven, le causa una herida mortal.
Still, even after giving him the fatal blow, the crowd was preventing anyone from getting close to him to try to give him some help or give him first aid. The crowd just wanted to make sure that he suffered in his last moments. Alexander's official cause of death was hypovolemic shock caused by the fatal blows. He also had 6 wounds to his head, neck, arms, and to his legs. The community's rage grew even more when they heard the state that Ana Karina's body was found in. Her body was eventually found underneath a bridge going over the river and on top of some large rocks. She had clear signs of essay, and she also had 2 stab wounds, one to her chest and one to her chin, as well as multiple marks of violence throughout her body. As her body was being taken out of the river, Ana Karina's family members were just absolutely absolutely furious and just so heartbroken. Her mom was hugging Ana Karina's body so tightly, and through tears, she was shouting, "Kill me, I want to go with her." It was so devastating for everyone to see. There's actually a video clip of this moment, and just watching it will send chills throughout your body. It will fill your eyes with tears. It's just horrifying to think about what her mom was feeling in that moment. You know, to see her daughter this way, to know that her daughter suffered and was so scared in her final moments at the hands of this random stranger. Like, why did he do this? It's just so infuriating. She never got to say goodbye to her family, and they will never see her again, all because of him. Both Ana Karina's and Alexander's bodies were taken to the forensic medical office, awaiting to be released to their family. However, there was a delay in releasing Ana Karina's body being released to her family, which just, made them upset. They kept getting excuses from the forensic medical office as to why she couldn't be released to them. They wanted to have her funeral as soon as possible and, just start laying her to rest. Thankfully, though, on May 5th, her body was finally given back to her family. She was taken to her grandparents' house where a wake was available for the public throughout the night. Then the following day, on May 6, 2022, her funeral was held. Hundreds of people gathered to say their final goodbyes and just show their support to Ana Karina's family and also to the community. The school's principal, Maria Teresa, was just heartbroken over, Ana Karina's death and over everything that happened. She urged authorities to provide psychological support for her family and also for her classmates. She shared the fear that was now throughout the entire community, saying that they never imagined that something so tragic like this could happen in this pretty much peaceful village. She said, quote, "We are overwhelmed by fear. There's now a constant worry that children may leave home and never make it to school. Please help us protect our youth and care for our youth." She was just a girl who was going to school, and because of a deranged man, she is dead today. Members of the school community urged the government to provide transportation for students who live in far rural areas, for families who aren't able to walk with their children to school. Some children live with their elderly parents or with grandparents who can't walk that far every single day. Also, some parents work early hours. Some kids don't have neighbors who are willing to do this favor for them. I mean, there are a lot of scenarios where a child can't always be accompanied on their way to school, and the community was just urging for transportation to be provided. They also urged the local government to provide more security in those more rural and just kind of hidden areas. I mean, it was just really scary and just so devastating to everyone to hear that she was just simply on her way to school and then this horrific thing happened to her. The governor of Santander, Mauricio Aguilar, publicly condemned the crime, calling it a brutal act that underscores the need to respect and value women in society. The mayor of where her school was also condemned the violence, emphasizing that Ana Karina was a student in his community and expressed solidarity with her grieving family. Students, teachers, and parents from her school held a memorial mass for her and marched through the streets with banners and balloons, demanding an end to violence against young women. They also held a candlelight vigil in memory of Ana Karina, and they hung an open letter for Colombian society at the school, which I will put on the screen here. It's a little bit long, but I thought it was just really powerful to read, and I think it's important for you guys to see it. It read, "Not one more girl. She wasn't dressed provocatively and she wasn't at a bar. She left for school just like every other day, wearing rubber boots because she lived on a ranch and made sacrifices like many children in this country to get an education. She felt the fear of someone following her. She was alone and she was scared. Her life was taken from her dreams, her hopes, and in the process, her family's too. It wasn't her fault. She didn't ask for this. What's the excuse now? Today, Karina's life was extinguished, but ours remains. The voice of those who demand safer environments, more functional homes where we teach children from a very young age that girls and boys should not be touched, should not be essayed, should not be killed." I just thought that was really powerful, and it's true, oftentimes so many people are blamed for what they're wearing, or, oh my gosh, she was drunk and walking alone from the bar. This is her fault. Again, those victims should never be blamed for what happens to them, but in this scenario, everyone's like, she was just a girl going to school. Like, what's your excuse now as to why this happened? How could you blame her for what happened? Her classmates were crying and hugging each other, and they kept her desk empty when they returned to school in her honor. Ana Karina's father, Julio Cesar, described his daughter as just being very mature, focused, and just clear about what she wanted for her future. He also revealed that she had actually recently told some friends that a man, which we can now probably assume was Alexander, had actually been following her for several days, though he didn't really elaborate as to what else Ana Karina told her friends. Maybe it was Alexander, maybe Ana Karina had noticed him for a couple of days, and on the day that she died, she realized that it was him again, and this time decided to take a photo and, document the stalking. Now, we don't really know much else about Alexander, but what we do know is that his family lived in the area and actually had to move away after what happened due to the anger that the community felt towards them. To add to this anger, authorities emphasized that there was actually going to be legal consequences for those who chose to take justice into their own hands. Colonel Carlos Martinez said, quote, "We reject, first and foremost, the abuse that this young girl was subjected to, and we also reject vigilante justice. What remains now is the sorrow over the young girl's death, the violence that occurred, and the legal consequences that will follow for those who took justice into their own hands." There was also a lot of criticism for the local authorities who permitted this lynching to happen, saying that they failed to prevent a second murder. This honestly just appalled everyone. In the community's eyes, this just wasn't fair to them. To make things even worse for the family, Ana Karina's own father was actually charged for his alleged role in the death of Alexander. According to Colombia's Attorney General's office, he was the one who delivered the most fatal blows to Alexander during this, fight that occurred, and ultimately the fatal blow that led to his death. He was actually being charged with aggravated homicide. Julio Cesar pled not guilty, and his defense argued that the evidence, the video, and the police statements are not sufficient to convict him, saying, quote, "In the video, a group of covered individuals is seen attacking Alexander Carrillo. It is not clear that Julio Cesar was present. The police version is also questionable because there are inconsistencies in their account when they describe the riots." Thankfully, Ana Karina's dad has remained free as he awaits the next steps from the justice system. As of now, I haven't seen an update on what's going on with his charges or what's going on with, his case, but as soon as I find one, I will definitely let you guys know. I think it's just really hard for Ana Karina's family to have to first, mourn the loss of Ana Karina, and then also now have to deal with the fact that maybe her father could possibly go to jail, for killing the person that killed his daughter. The community members have expressed their disapproval of this entire thing. They obviously don't want Ana Karina's dad to go to jail because he participated in the lynching of the man who did this to his daughter and then just threw her body in the river. Many parents in the community have said that they would have done the exact same thing and honestly feel like justice was made that day. Like I said at the beginning of the video, there has been a lot of public debate about Ana Karina's case. On one side, many people believe that justice was done and that the community simply did what the justice system often fails to do, arguing that if the perpetrator had been handed over to the authorities, he likely would have received probably a very laughable sentence or even have been released shortly after being taken into custody. As we know, those scenarios have happened in other similar cases. One example of that is the case of Fatima Gutierrez, which we have covered on this channel before. I will have her video up here if you guys want to watch it after, or linked in the description box down below. Fatima's case was just absolutely terrible. It's one that also stuck with me, and I know it stuck with you guys as well based on the comments. It was horrifying. Fatima was brutally essayed and murdered by 3 men while she was on her way home from school, and when the community got their hands on the perpetrators, they began hitting them, dousing them with gasoline, trying to light them on fire, and were basically going to kill them. But ultimately, they were stopped after several people intervened and said that they should just let the justice system take care of them. In the end, only one of the men who participated in Fatima's murder was convicted. Yeah, the other 2 were just let free after a few days of being taken into custody, free to just live their life as if nothing had happened, free to harm another young girl if they really wanted to. Fatima's mother and her community have expressed regret for just not finishing what they started. In Ana Karina's case, the community's response was led by their frustration with a system that just too often fails to protect victims or prevent repeat offenders, leaving them with no other choice in their mind than to handle it themselves. So obviously the community is upset with the way that Ana Karina's dad is being charged with murder because they're like, listen, we had to take things into our own hands. Way too often these guys are just let go and justice isn't actually made, and now the guy is dead and can never harm anyone ever again. So, in their mind, they did the right thing. However, on the other side, many others strongly believe that what happened to the perpetrator was just as wrong as the crime itself, arguing that no one has the right to take justice into their own hands, especially when the legal system has not yet proven their guilt. For them, mob justice is still murder and dangerous, especially if one day an innocent person becomes a target. Now, in this case, we know that Alexander did confess to what he did, but those who believe that what the community did was wrong still say that his due process was bypassed. I am really interested in seeing what you guys think about this. What do you guys think about how the community handled getting justice for her death, and which side do you think is right? Or do you think both sides are a little bit right and also a little bit wrong? Overall, this case is just so heartbreaking and it's just so tragic in so many ways. What makes it just even more devastating is that Ana Karina tried to protect herself. She noticed that something was wrong. She walked faster. She did her best to get to the bus stop as soon as possible. She took a picture of the man. She sent it to someone to let them know that this guy was following her. She did everything right, everything that we're told to do when we feel unsafe. And still, it wasn't enough. It reminds us how important it is to listen to our instincts. If something feels off, it's important to take the steps to feel safe, even if it is a false alarm. You should never feel embarrassed for being cautious, for crossing the street if you feel like someone is following you, for calling someone for help, for taking a photo, or for even being rude, which a lot of the times women are labeled as being rude or as being mean to, random men that come up to them. Your safety just matters more than politeness. Ana Karina was just a girl on her way to school, and everything was taken from her in a quick moment. Her family and friends are now forced to move forward with an unbearable absence in their lives. They have to wake up each day without her smile, lighting up the room, without her kind words cheering them on, without the love and the laughter that she brought so naturally to those around her. Her dreams of becoming a psychologist, of building a better future for her family and for her mom, and just simply living a beautiful life was stolen from her. My heart just goes out to her family and loved ones. I do truly hope that Ana Karina is resting peacefully. Thank you guys just so much for being here and for listening to her story. I know it's just so frustrating how this keeps happening over and over again. Researching these cases is a lot, it takes a toll on you. But like I said at the beginning, I truly believe that sharing these stories is so important. It's important to remind everyone of what truly goes on in this world, how women are murdered every single day, how they're not safe walking to school, walking to work, or just aren't safe existing. We have to keep sharing these cases and just keep spreading awareness on how to stay safe and on how things need to change to better protect women. Again, I would love to know your thoughts on this case down below. Thank you guys so much for being here. It's such a difficult thing to talk about, but I appreciate your guys' support so much. If you haven't watched my last video, I will link it down below, and you guys can also click on the upcoming screen to watch my latest video along with another past video. Also, if you guys are not subscribed to my channel, I would appreciate it if you guys could click the subscribe button down below. I realize that sometimes YouTube kind of unsubscribes people by themselves, so just make sure and double check that you guys are subscribed and turn on the notifications so you guys don't miss any future videos. I also have a second channel where we kind of take a break from true crime and we talk about fictional mystery or thriller stories, so make sure to check that out down below. And yeah, I think that's pretty much all I have to say. Thank you guys again so much for being here, and I will see you guys in my next one. Bye, familia.